House, 87 Republicans voted to approve the shutdown deal. One of them is Republican Congressman Aaron Schock of Illinois, who joins us now. Also with us, of course, my CNN colleagues, Chief Congressional Correspondent Dana Bash and Chief Political Analyst Gloria Borger. Thank you, one and all, for being here. So, Congressman, here we are, more than 2 weeks later. $24 billion, according to analysts, have been taken out of the economy or not fed into the economy because of all this. What did Republicans in the House get for it, and was it worth it?
Well, I think what we got is a conference committee, and I think after the president said tonight that the government's going to reopen, that he's going to sign the bill, I hope the next step is he's going to negotiate. Because as we know from last week, he said he's not going to negotiate with a gun to his head. So I and my Democratic colleagues tonight voted to put the weapons away, figuratively speaking. And I hope genuinely he will be a part of negotiating. Obviously, the House will appoint conferees, and the Senate will appoint negotiators, and we'll negotiate. But the president really needs to lean in, I think, and be constructive about helping us come up with long-term solutions to our debt. The shutdown and the debt limit really were about long-term spending. That's what this fight has always been about.
Right.
And I think the president needs to make good on his campaign pledge, which is he wants to cut the deficit in half under his term.
You represent Peoria, Illinois. I'm sure you're annoyed with journalists asking this question, but how has this played? How has this played in Peoria? I can't believe it's played particularly well.
You know what? My congressional district has some pretty deep heritage. It's Abe Lincoln's old seat. It's Everett Dirksen's old seat. It's Bob Michael and Ray LaHood's old seat. It's historically represented by Republicans, but pragmatic Republicans.
People
and at
who
the end
can
of the
work
day,
across the aisle.
People expect us to work across the aisle.
Your predecessor was in the Obama cabinet.
Sure, and the predecessor before that was the minority leader under Reagan and helped deliver a lot of important votes, working with Democrats across the aisle. And I think the message here really needs to be, we have divided government. And no one is going to get everything that they want. And what I've tried to convince my Republican colleagues tonight is, look at the board. There's 150 Democrats that voted with the Speaker, with the majority leader. And we don't need 150 Democrats. If we have 20 or 30 Democrats, if we have 40 Democrats, we have a governing majority.
But
and so the sooner we can reach that reality, I think the sooner we can govern and negotiate sooner rather than have to wait after the government.
I completely hear what you're saying, and excuse me for being cynical, but I'm going to be just a little cynical because
that's why you're here.
I've covered a lot of this. You know, the super committee after the fiscal. Why should we be any more optimistic today than we were a year ago when the super committee was formed and we were all going to get to great budget negotiations and curb entitlements and all the rest?
Well, I think ultimately that's why the conference went to the extremes that it did with the government shutdown, with the eve of the brink of the default, is because there's a growing majority even among the sane caucus. I would consider myself one of the same members.
Who's the insane caucus?
Well, you know, I'm not going to name names, but there's a small list of those guys. But look, there's a growing say, look, at the end of the day, we want to be able to say we've done something to bend the cost curve long term. We're not going to rule anything out. I'm willing to talk to the president about everything that he wants on his wish list. When our leadership went to the White House last week, it wasn't, hey, you got to agree to $1 trillion in cuts or $2 trillion cuts. We just said we want to talk. Let's negotiate.
Obamacare. I'm sorry, I'm confused because I thought this was about Obamacare.
You know what? I think when John Boehner and Eric Cantor went down to the White House, they didn't say we have to touch Obamacare. Obamacare, health care, is a large component of our spending problem. When you look at Medicare and Medicaid, and now the new entitlement of Obamacare. But if you don't want to touch Obamacare, fine. But you're going to have to do something serious on Social Security, on Medicare and Medicaid, if you're going to bend the long-term cost of our federal government. The sequestration clearly is not the solution because it's not the right way to make cuts.
Okay, but let's just get real here. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And so the squeaky wheel in this scenario is the conservatives in your caucus. Just these are your terms, not mine, just for the record here in the Twitterverse. The sane caucus is very quiet. The insane caucus, as you would call them, are not. And my understanding is that in even the private meetings, the caucus meetings that you all have very regularly, they're the ones who get up and talk. They're the ones who make the noise. And you guys are a silent majority. So are you going to not be silent anymore?
I think you're going to see more of us become much more vocal and not be taken for granted when it comes to always counting on our votes. You're right. There are probably 20 or 30 members who are very loud and squeaky and, quite frankly, don't vote yes on much. And the sooner that we realize that if you're not going to be a part of being constructive, then we really don't want you a part of the conversation. And take the flock of 200 plus, if you will, and work with those who are willing to work with us. And here's what I would say. There are some who would say, oh, Aaron, you're not being a true conservative. If you're willing to work with Democrats,
oh, Aaron, you're not being a true conservative.
But here's the reality. Here's the reality. We got to work with Democrats anyways. Newsflash, Democrats control the Senate. Newsflash, Democrats control the White House. Newsflash, Republicans control the House. Neither party is going to get everything they want. So the sooner that both parties recognize that and recognize that the sooner we can work together, we can advance the ball, not just on deficit reduction, on immigration reform, on infrastructure investment, all the things we need to do in this country. We got to be willing to work together and accept we're not going to get everything we want.
With those news flashes, we thank you very much, Congressman Aaron Schock of Illinois. I appreciate it.
Thanks.